see here. So the next question, did you find cold calling much more efficient than cold emailing? Did you call mainly associate, VP level, or MD level? Okay, so great question. So first off, I felt cold calling was much more efficient on a Friday. Cold emailing was really efficient if I emailed at certain times of the day. So from 8 to 9 a.m. and from about 1 to 2 p.m. This is a little tip I got, I think, on Wall Street Oasis, where somebody said, and I do the same at my job now, is I look at my email first thing in the morning and right after lunch. The rest of the time, I'm looking at emails, but it's high priority things. And so when cold emailing, I was much more responsive. I had the time to craft a message, and I knew the person on the other end might hopefully have the time, and take the time to come up with a response or be willing to meet with me, especially if there's times of day where they might be taking the train into work, they might be right after lunch, and those types of things were effective. But I think cold calling was probably the most effective for me, just because I'm comfortable talking on the phone, which I know a number of people are not, which obviously cold emailing might be more efficient. But cold calling, with a lot of luck, you'll be able to get to somebody right away, and being able to talk to them and have them have a conversation with you. Obviously, it's a bit of a game of luck where they might be really busy, they might not be willing to. But even at that point, as long as I was able to follow up with, oh, I'll send you an email to follow up, that was really helpful, where even if they weren't able to talk then, I could send them an email, and that email then all of a sudden didn't become a cold email. They had already spoken to me on the phone. They might be pissed off at me for interrupting their day, but they at least knew who I was, and it became a little less of a cold email. So I felt that that was a really helpful little way to end the conversation on a cold call, was following up by email as well. And to the other point, which is, did you mainly talk to associate, VP level, or MD level? The majority I actually targeted more to the mid-level, so more VP and principal level, some senior associates, but it was more the mid-level, and that was more something I just learned through keep calling people. The associates were very busy all the time, and a lot of them, for one reason or another, weren't as responsive. And the same thing could be said about the MDs. When I was calling them, a number of them were, you had to go through an executive assistant to get to talk to them, and they all of a sudden would be busy all the time because they didn't want to talk to you. And I felt like VPs and principals were much more willing to talk to you. And while obviously they were still busy, it was very easy to get a hold of them directly, and they seemed much more responsive and willing to have an interview with you, or have a say in who might get an interview or who might get hired. I felt like that was a good balance between the two, was find the middle of the pack, because they didn't have too much on their plate as the associates would, and they weren't able to follow up, or the MDs where you had to go through somebody else most of the time, and it became a whole nother issue there. So I felt like the middle of the road was probably the most effective throughout my process.